The purpose of this video tutorial is to explain how to add range checks for either red or blue to your model. So step one is look for the block that has the main motion algorithm in it. In the zombies baseline, this is block 5. In your model, it may be some other block. So when we open that block up, first thing we're going to need to do is add an attribute that tells us whether or not we're in the new weapons range. So on the output table side, we're going to resize and then add one more row. Then that row needs to become an attribute. Now we're going to need to create a new value attribute. We want to name that attribute in, and then the name of your weapon. So in new weapon range, this is going to represent whether or not I am in the weapons firing range as I come out of this block. Now that I have that attribute set up, that's available for me to use as a variable inside my code. So I'm going to scroll down past the motion calculations, and then I'm going to monkey see, monkey do add to this listing. So I'm going to have in new weapon range equals false. So I assume I'm not in the weapons range until proven otherwise. So the proven otherwise consists of, again, monkey see, monkey do, so copy paste. Okay, it may be easier to work with if you open up the equation editor. It's a little bit more friendly. So we're going to go down to the position where we were at, and then we're going to copy and then paste in our code here. But we're going to modify, we still have the zombie to good guy distance that we're keying off of. We're going to look at using the new weapon range, and we'll get to that in a second, where that comes from. So if we're indeed less than or equal to the new weapons range, we can use new weapons range is true. We can also bracket the range between two values. So you might have a minimum range as well, and this would be the place to insert that criteria. So now we want to make sure that we've added our new weapon range in here as well. And the purpose of doing this is to just make sure that if we're not in any of the ranges, we'll just continue to on with the motion algorithm. Okay, so that's it for the modifications. So the last thing you want to do is make sure you test equation. Now in this case, I probably spelled something wrong. So here I have new weapon range. Notice that it says that this is an undefined variable. And we actually don't have, this is not a typo. This is because we've not gone in and then added a connector to pass in that variable value from outside the equation block. So on the input side, we're going to resize and then get an extra row. This time we're going to use a connector. That connector passes in from the outside, and we're going to put in new weapon range. Okay, now we'll test equation. If you see this outcon X and outcon Y in there, what we can do here is simply delete outcon X and outcon Y from the bottom. The purpose of having those is for motion debugging. So once your model's running and you're satisfied the motion's working, you don't need that anyway. Okay, if you push test equation and nothing happens, that's a good sign. That means it passed tests. It doesn't give you a positive affirmation for that. Okay, so now what we notice is outside the equation block, we have a new weapon range here. Now, if we've added a lot of things to the equation block, it can be handy to go to the options and then show those input and output connector labels. That way you're totally clear on what's coming in and out. This can be an important debugging thing as well. So we need to actually have a new weapon range that would either come from something that you add to your database, which I'm not going to show in this video, or if we just want to do quick and dirty, we can input a constant value into there. So we set the constant value to whatever this range is going to be. And then we hook that up to our input. Okay, that sets up the motion block. Now what we need to do is we've grabbed a constant block. Now we need to make sure that that range is enforced where we need it for the new weapon. So we have our new weapon range attribute, and this constant we're going to say is weapon range. Again, this would be something that would likely be coming from your database, but we're going to put it in here just so that we can illustrate how those values are used. So if this is where we're going to add in our new weapon, notice that there's already a gun busy check. So we need to add in our weapon check, and it really doesn't matter if this weapon check comes in before or after we do the gun busy check. It will be the same logic either way. So to do that, we want to go to the item menu, add in a new select block. Get the select block hooked up. In just a second, I'll show you why we are going to hook it up slightly differently. So we're going to hook it up to the bottom output. The top output is going to represent not being in range. So if it's not in range, we're going to go ahead and send it back to the standard delay. Now let's open this up and make sure this internal settings are appropriate. So we do not want it to randomly choose whether we're in range or not. We want to select this based on property. Now, property is the same thing as an attribute. Unfortunately, XtendSim is not 100% consistent with its terminology. So we want to set that attribute to the new weapon range. So that's, am I in or out of that weapon range? If we are not in new weapon range, we want to go to the top, which is connector 0. If we are in, so we get the value 1, we want to select output number 1. And that completes the hookup for adding a new range to your model.